It's your boy T.O. as you know. Not here with a rain. Real name, no games, no gimmicks. But it's the Fade Podcast. You want to stop shop for everything TV, media, and film, along with any other goddamn thing we want to talk about. Coming to you live direct, Proof of Concept Studios, Baltimore City. What is up with you? What's going on? How you feeling? What are you doing? What's going on? How you feeling? What's going on? Doing? Feeling? What's going on? Okay, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just babbling. How are y'all doing out there? The 4 people who watch the show. As you can see, Arain Real Names, No Gimmicks. No Games, No Gimmicks is not here with me. He was having some technical difficulties in that we had a storm here in Baltimore, or I guess close to Baltimore, for him. And it seemed to have knocked out his interwebs, so he was not able to join us tonight. But we will press on, and he actually still might be able to hop in a little later. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah, we'll kind of keep it pushing for now. I still wanted to get some content out there to y'all's, have some sort of regularity with the show. So yeah, it's just me, just the Tune Day hour. So I'm going to try to get my audio right here. Whoops. That is not what I wanted. What is happening? How do I change this? What am I doing? All right. Don't know what that was about, but yeah. Let's see here. I'm trying to change my audio because I can kind of hear myself, and I'm trying not to hear myself is what I'm trying to do. Here we go. Here we go. All right. We're back on track, okay? We are back on track. All right, ladies and gentlemen, how's it going out there? A lot happening in the film and TV world these days. It's a crazy world out there. I was just looking at the movies coming out like this week and next week. I usually do the segment this week, next week, and it kind of started as, what movies that are coming out this week, next week that we are interested in. And then it kind of expanded to just general things happening this week and next week. But as I kind of look at things happening this week, next week, man, look, the release window for 2020 or 2021 rather, all sorts of fucked up, dude. All sorts of fucked up because obviously because of COVID last year, just a lot of whoops. So that happened again. All right, y'all bear with me here. Hold on. There we go. There we go. Okay. All right. Seem to be back. This night is going great. It's going great right now. Anywho, a lot of things, as I was talking about, a lot of things going on with COVID. Obviously, last year, so that shut down a lot of productions, and a lot of productions just have kind of been in limbo because of COVID. And so the release window has been all sorts of fucked up with us getting kind of weeks on end without there being actually new and exciting releases, at least national releases, right? That we're really pumped about each and every week, which is kind of what we're used to, right? We're used to, especially during the summer and fall months, we're definitely used to like there being something every week that it's like, oh, this movie's coming out, that movie's coming out, yada yada. But for our post, or not even post, during COVID world, that seems to have been made extremely different. That you might go a couple of weeks without really having some high profile releases that are truly noteworthy. but also too, it might be just kind of a call to arms to just watch smaller films, that might not get watched otherwise, but neither here nor there. I say all that to say that, yeah, not a lot's happening both this week and next week as far as movies coming out. We are getting a movie next week that I'm going to talk about here in just a sec. But to get it popping with our This Week Next Week segment, I'm going to talk about something that is being released. It's kind of just like a re-release, if you ask me, because we kind of already got this. I think I want to say it was from Hulu, unless I'm mistaken with that. But we got a Britney Spears documentary with Hulu that. Sort of went through the conservatorship, I believe that's what they call it, and all the troubles that she's had with that, and if you don't know what the story is, basically Britney Spears, I guess sometime either during the 2000s or the 2010s, she had a conservatorship or whatever the fuck that word is, for her, I guess, estate or for her own persons. I don't know. But which happened to be her dad. It turns out her dad's kind of a piece of shit. And so, yeah, it just turned into that she can't really control her own life. Basically, he controls her life for her because the courts apparently decided that she was not fit to control her own life. Anyways, the New York Times made a documentary, which I believe got put out. I think it was on Hulu. It might have been either Hulu or Amazon Prime. I'm pretty sure it was Hulu. And it got everybody talking about her situation, and sort of where her life was at. And so Netflix, not one to be upstaged, has come out with their own documentary, Britney versus Spears. Is their documentary, which basically they talk about the same shit. And what I find really interesting about this, which I'm pretty sure that this particular documentary doesn't, it does the same exact thing that the other documentary doesn't do, which is it doesn't actually have Britney Spears talking in terms of like her talking, about her scenario and about her situation. I guess partly because she probably can't, because, maybe, her father, or, whoever is keeping her from talking about it. But also it might be because she doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know. I don't know. But this is kind of why I didn't necessarily care for the Hulu documentary, because they presented a lot of interesting questions as far as her situation goes, but they didn't really like dig into any of like, okay, like what are the actual solutions, or like they posed a lot of questions, and framed them in a particular way, but didn't really get to like the heart of the question, like, so for instance, they kind of set it up where her relationship with like Justin Timberlake and how he was considered to be like the jock that was jilted by, Britney Spears, who was supposed to be sort of, the person cheating on him and all this, and basically they're like, well, he was a dick for sort of how he left her high and dry when it came to that. But what was weird about it is that like, well, neither of them seemed to like talk about it thereafter, right? And so we don't really like know what happened there. So everything is just pieced together from other people who aren't really even directly like, who weren't directly in. And so a lot of that seemed to happen during the course of the trailer, or during the course of the documentary, which, I don't know, I thought was weird, but whatevs. So anyways, that's coming out soon. A trailer just dropped for that. So Britney versus Spears on Netflix. And in other news, so, and again, this segment just kind of just go through random stuff that I'm seeing that we're talking about this week, as well as next, or, film and TV related that are happening this week. Or a bit of news that has come out this week, rather. So it turns out for Blade Runner, that there are basically two people who are put in charge of keeping the canon straight for the Blade Runner IP. And so and so for those who are interested, the Blade Runner, obviously this sci-fi saga that is set in sort of like this cyberpunk sort of society, and there's the question of like replicants who are Blade Runner is kind of a complicated story, but anyways, it's interesting because the Alcon Entertainment owns the IP to Blade Runner, so it's basically their job to that they can have a hand obviously in producing the content for Blade Runner. And so what they said was that they appointed two people specifically in charge of keeping everything sort of in line and straight as far as like the logic behind it and the motivations behind the characters and all this good jazz, which I thought was fucking dope. Now, what immediately popped into my mind was perhaps maybe, and I'm pretty sure they probably do have somebody like this, but I'm sure fans of the series or the property would beg to differ. But one might say that might be they could do the same thing for Star Wars, right? Because a large complaint of people, fans of the Star Wars was saying basically that the motivations of the characters' actions just didn't fall in line with both with the sequels that came out, as well as just what Star Wars is historically, that a lot of the motivations were just off, and a lot of the continuity was just not there necessarily. And so I just thought that was interesting, because Blade Runner is a really sort of complex story, and it would behoove them to try to keep everything straight. But the reason why they were even talking about that is because Blade Runner is actually coming out with Blade Runner Black Lotus, which I believe is going to be premiering on, I think, Adult Swim on the Cartoon Network. It looks like the 13-episode debut season of Blade Runner Black Lotus will begin its run in late 2021, which I believe, again, that it's the Cartoon Network that it's going to be showing on, specifically Adult Swim. Thought that was interesting, but moving on. And then I saw a trailer for Passing, which is Rebecca Hall's actually first project. And so obviously it's her directorial debut, and basically what it has to do with is she is they're telling a story of I guess a black woman from back in, I don't know, the 1920s or something like that, and she has a friend, and her friend, I believe, can pass as white, while this woman, who's played by Tessa Thompson, is obviously black and or she's light skinned, but obviously black nonetheless. And so anyways, so it tells this story of sort of them relating to one another, and sort of the dynamics of that particular relationship with someone who, they're both black, but one of them can pass as white in 1920s America. You could imagine, there's no shortage of avenues to explore there. But what I wanted to kind of ruminate on, if you'll indulge me, is the idea that, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that whenever you have these, and now, and I believe this particular movie is based off of a novel, right? A novel by Nella Larson, and obviously Rebecca Hall is, if it's a Rebecca Hall, I'm sure I know of. She's white, so it's interesting that that she's making this story, or she's directing this particular film. But what I've always found sort of interesting is that when black stories get told, they're always told sort of with the overarching shadow, or not always, but more often than not, it feels like to me they're told with still the overarching lens of or filter, if you will, of black and white, or at least to some degree. And feel free to bash me in the head if if I'm grossly wrong about that. But it just feels like whenever we see, especially a story that gets some sort of some sort of push in the media, and it's supposed to be quote unquote a black story. It seems like that's kind of just always the case. Like, where's our stories with predominantly black characters or from a black person's point of view that have absolutely nothing to do with black or white, that it's just a story, that's being told. And I understand that race is, it's clearly an issue one might even say one of the main issues here in America. But all things being even, there are plenty of stories out there that have nothing to do with being with through the lens of whiteness versus blackness or whatever the case is. I don't know. I want to, and it might just be my own ignorance, right? Like maybe I'm just not searching for those stories or giving breath to those stories enough. Give me one sec here. I've got my trusty sidekick here who's calling. Give me one sec to speak with him. I shall return. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back from the quiet storm. So yeah, sorry about that. Rain was just he was still dealing with some technical difficulties, so we were just trying to work it out for him to be able to hop into the show. So he might hop in a little later. We'll see. But anyways, as I was talking about, I don't know, man. I don't know. And again, if you're watching this and you're saying, oh, this guy's an idiot, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, and he needs to check this, and that out, feel free, to send me some links to, show me some films that I'm not watching that are told from a black person's point of view, but don't have anything to do with doesn't have anything to do with white people, or at least not excluding white people necessarily, but not necessarily having the story in some form or fashion relating to black people versus white people, or that's just a person telling their story, and obviously a lot of stories have a lot to do with black and whiteness, but there are stories out there that everybody experiences that has little to nothing to do with explicitly with blackness versus whiteness. Anyways, thought I'd mention that, but I'm sure Passing will be a very fine movie. Might even check it out when it drops. But anyways, moving on to next week. That was this week. Moving on to next week. The movie coming out that obviously is being looked at super hard, or that I'll look at super hard, is The Many Saints of Newark. Now I think I'm going to have a conversation about David Chase, who obviously is the creator of The Sopranos, and The Many Saints of Newark is the prequel to The Sopranos, in which it delves into a very young Tony Soprano and his up and comings. So David Chase, obviously, it came out, I think, last week, or maybe not. Obviously, I don't know why I just said that reflexively, but there's articles that came out last week that talked about how he hates streaming, or hates the fact that The Many Saints of Newark has gone to streaming through HBO Max, and yeah, so we'll talk about that a little later. But I'm very much looking forward to The Many Saints of Newark. I don't think I have too much expectations for it, simply because I remember checking out, what is it, El Camino? It was the follow up to Breaking Bad. And it was I think like an hour-long thing that was done. That was sort of, again, the follow-up to Breaking Bad, and that was on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. And I just remember thinking, oh, we very much not needed. We could have just left the whole thing where it was. This added nothing to what I thought of the series, or it was just kind of a big bowl of nothing. And so I'm hoping that The Many Saints of Newark isn't that, but I remember being very excited to watch El Camino, just because, I don't know, I was thinking it was going to be one thing when it wasn't. And so I think the idea here is not to put that much weight on The Many Saints of Newark, and just kind of let it be its own thing, and I think that's the correct way to approach these sort of follow-ups to these great shows, is to really not have too much expectations for them, or too many expectations. But anyways, one thing that I wanted to talk about super quick before I get into some other stuff. I watched the What If episode today, and it was what if, like, Thor, I don't know, it was the episode with Thor. It was the What If, I think episode 7, either 7 or 8, one of those two, that just came out today. This series is interesting because it's got a lot of ups and a lot of downs. It's very confusing. This particular episode was, for me at least, a down, because I could see what they were kind of going for with this sort of lighthearted, and spoiler alerts, I guess, for anybody who hasn't watched it yet, but this sort of lighthearted story of Thor. What if Thor was an only child? And, he's kind of just this party dude who really isn't concerned with, doing shit except for just partying, and it just was stupid. If I'm being blunt, it was just stupid. It wasn't. And so, anyways, talking about the series overall, it's been a super mixed bag. Of a lot of good things, but then a lot of, like, all right, cool. What else you got me sort of things, where it's just like, yeah, that was all right, but not that great. So yeah, that's my basic run through real quick of the latest What If episode. Is just with each episode, it felt like it was getting progressively better, and this episode was like a distinct deviation from that. It's as if this episode should have been at, like, the beginning of the series, and somehow it got put towards the end of the series, because each episode I felt like was getting better than the one that preceded it. And this one was, at least for me, it was a complete regression. In that it just wasn't really interesting. I didn't really care, it talked a lot about how like Thor had a different dynamic with everybody, and obviously, it was like almost like I keep wanting to say Ferris Bueller, but that doesn't feel like a proper comparison. But it was just like, this dude who like, his parents leave for the weekend, so he goes and parties, and the house is in ruin, and then they're about to come back home, and he has to clean up real quick before they get back. And that was the basic story of it. And it was just, and then Captain Marvel was kind of like shoehorned in there, and that felt kind of awkward, or not even awkward, but just like, it felt like it was a little forced. I don't know. It just was not Marvel's best work. But whatever. I don't think they have to hit us with their best. They just have to hit us with something, I suppose. They can coast for a while. They're still coasting off the fumes, I think, of Endgame. And obviously the pandemic didn't do them any favors as far as the whole rollout of all of these things. But to me, the What If series has been kind of the down part of these sort of batch of series that we've gotten. To me, this has been sort of like they kind of missed the mark with this one. WandaVision kind of bordered on that, but not, I feel like WandaVision, if you just accept WandaVision for what it is and ignore all of the sort of theories and things like that from the show, then I feel like WandaVision was much more enjoyable. But What If, to me, it's just not terribly, terribly interesting. But yeah, maybe that's just me. Anywho, we are going to get into these here trailers. So we're going to react to a few trailers here. This first one, of course, is, Halloween Kills. This is the final trailer for Halloween Kills. I don't need to do the synopsis for fucking Halloween Kills. Michael Myers shows up and starts murking dudes. That's the basis of the story, okay? That's all we need to know from the premise. This, of course, is the follow-up to, I think, 2019's Halloween, which is essentially a continuation of the Laurie Strode universe when it comes to Michael Myers. And it was good, man. I really liked it. I thought it was a good, nice. It was a nice individual story. Is what I really liked about it. And not so much of the other sequels can you really say that about. That Halloween H2O was all right, but still super campy. Halloween Resurrection was just god awful in pretty much every conceivable way. And Rob Zombies was just, I don't know. I don't know if it's just gory. So anyways, Halloween, the one that they came out with a couple years ago, I felt like was just a really good story. I didn't figure that they would turn it into a trilogy, but apparently that's what they're doing. So we'll see if Halloween Kills is any good. Anyways, it's directed by David Gordon Green, written by Green, as well as Danny McBride, Scott Teems, I don't know. And of course stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, Anthony Michael Hall, Will Patton, and is due out October 15th of this here year of our Lord. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and check out Halloween Kills, the final trailer.
Hey, what are you guys doing out here?
It's Halloween. We've been trick-or-treating.
Are you alone?
There's a creepy man in a white mask.
Where?
And he keeps, trying to play hide and seek with us.
Where did you see him? Look! Run! Go home now!
Unlock the door! No! Come on!
We killed Michael.
My grandmother set the fire.
No one told you.
Told me what?
Michael Myers is alive.
A man couldn't have survived that fire. 40 years ago, the boogeyman came for us. We are the survivors of Michael Myers.
Lori, what do we do?
We fight.
Mom,
Our family will kill him.
we're gonna hunt him down and we're gonna put an end to this.
He is not gonna stop killing until we stop him.
If you track Michael's victims, that's a straight line to Michael's childhood home.
Someone's in our house.
He's coming for me, but I'm coming for him.
You wanna kill someone? Take me! Michael!
I want to take his mask off and see the life leave his eyes.
All right. Halloween Kills, final trailer. I'm a sucker for all things Halloween, just because I grew up on the Halloween movies. So it's rare that one comes out that I'm not like, at least going to check it out. You know, I don't think that the story that they told in the first sort of rebirth of the Halloween series, I don't think that first story was conducive to like another story, because I feel like they kind of covered most of the areas that you would think that, you know, were the interesting parts of what would be a post Michael Myers potential hunting, you know, of him hunting you, you know, and so they showed a really sort of fucked up Laurie Strode, where her life was just terrible. She, you know, was kind of paranoid, and who could fucking blame her, you know. But I don't know. I don't feel like that story was necessarily terribly conducive to another story being told on top of that. And so I don't expect too much out of this particular movie, but we're getting it nonetheless, so fuck it, I'll check it out. You know, what else I want to do? It's October. You know, it comes out October 15th. Now, it is interesting that I saw that it's coming out on Peacock. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Not surprising, obviously, but interesting. Especially since I think Universal did does the Halloween movies. And I thought they were gonna, you know, they would keep a movie like this in theaters, but yeah, they're gonna put this out on Peacock, which is interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It looked okay. Just okay. I suppose the interesting aspect is like, what if like the entire fucking town is like hunting Michael, you know? Fuck a fire. Let's just get a mob after him and, you know, pull him from limb to limb. You know, maybe, I don't know, I don't know. Because it's like, fuck it. Like, let's just chain his ass up and then fucking just everybody, you know, fucking just takes their shots at fucking Michael Myers, you know, in the center of the fucking town, where he can't sneak up on anybody. That, you know, we've got him, you know, fucking, we're broadcasting his trial on TV and shit. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, Halloween Kills, I'm sure that'll be at least vaguely interesting, so I'll check it out. And I'm just a sucker for all things Halloween, so we'll make that happen. Moving on here to our second trailer. We have American Underdog, which is the story of NFL MVP and Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, who went from stocking shelves at a supermarket to becoming an American football star, and it's directed by Andrew and John Irwin, and written by David Aaron Cohen, as well as John Irwin and John Gunn, and stars Zachary Levi, Anna Paquin, Dennis Quaid, and Adam Baldwin, and is due out December 25th, Christmas Day. Oh, how wholesome. Of again this year. So yeah, let's go ahead and check out American Underdog.
You wanted to see me, sir.
Sit down, Kurt.
Thank you, Coach. I prefer to stand.
All right, go ahead then. Tell me.
Tell you what.
Why a team worth $800 million, one of the most complex offenses ever built, should put you in the driver's seat. You're too old to be a rookie, too green to be a pro. So why in the world would I give you this shot?
All my life, I've defined myself through sports. I've always come up empty.
Coach, I can win for you. You need to start thinking about life after football, son.
We gave you that chance. We're letting you go.
I was meant for something. Something more.
You think you could be that guy?
Yeah, I do.
What are you doing here?
I wasn't ready for it, but I am now.
You defied all odds.
I've waited for it. I've bled for it. I know who I am, and I know why I'm here. If you give me a chance,
Green went down hard and is not getting up.
I will not let you down.
You were born for this.
Something special about you, son. Destiny belongs to the underdogs. You want to prove that?
All right. American Underdog. The story of Kurt Warner. Yeah, that looked a little too wholesome for my taste, and maybe a little bit too much CGI for my usual beat. But fuck it. It's a story about Kurt Warner, you know? Who doesn't like Kurt Warner? He's a cool dude. For those who don't know, yeah, Kurt Warner, I mean, what the fucking trailer pretty much summed everything up. He went from, basically stocking shelves and shit to, and I think he played in the either Canadian Football League or, I don't know, some other football league he played in, and maybe Arena? I think maybe it was Arena Football League. I don't know. But anyways, he ended up he was on the Packers as Brett Favre's backup, or at least maybe one of his backups. And then apparently he got cut from there, went to the LA Rams and Trent Green, right? Trent Green. Does that sound right? Trent Green. Who was the Rams quarterback at that time? Fuck. If only Orain was here to talk about his goddamn team. But yeah, I think it was Trent Green. I might have that wrong. Don't shoot me if I do. Trent Green went down with an injury, and Kurt Warner got put in as a backup, and everybody thought, well, here's this old ass dude who's not going to do shit. And then what does he do? He just fucking makes the greatest show on turf with him. Oh God, what are their names? The receivers, I keep wanting to say Bruce Smith. That's not right. I'm terrible with names, by the way. So if you haven't gotten that picture by now, then of course you get it now. I'm terrible with names. Fudge. Now it's gonna bother me. Now, let me see. Greatest show on turf. But Marshall Faulk was a part of that team. I know that much at least. But the receivers are escaping me at the moment. Let's see. Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. That's who I wanted to say. That's their names. Isaac Bruce. I know there's a Bruce somewhere in there, but anyways, great story, great story. But yeah, I don't know. Looked a tad bit Hallmarkish for my taste, but fuck it. you need a feel-good story every now and then that is trying to tug at your heartstrings and doesn't exactly do it, but you kind of let it anyways. And so this is one of those movies it feels like for me. And shout out to Kurt Warner, man. That's a pretty dope fucking story, an inspiring story, to hear him going from basically, going from nothing. Although it's a very American thing, right? Is like the exceptional ones, right? That that he just had that something about him that just made him persevere, and he rose above everything, and he was able to make it. And I feel like that dream sold to everybody, even though distinctly here in America, that story is not going to happen for pretty much everybody. So it's a story that gets sold and resold at premium prices, but is distinctly kind of just not true for everybody. The same story is not going to happen for everybody. Anyways, not to be a bit downer there. Great story for Kurt Warner. I doubt if I'm going to, sit in the theater and watch this on Christmas Day, but maybe I'll see it some other time. I don't know. Just not on Christmas. Anywho, let's move on to our third story here. Look, let's talk about Bond. We're talking about all things Bond here. Okay. So, what's interesting is, and we were just talking about football, right? And one of the things about football right now, my team is, of course, the Green Bay Packers. Anybody who knows me knows this. And our starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, had a whole big off-season thing in which he was debating potentially not returning to the team. And in the close to the stroke of midnight, he had a reverse of heart and decided he wanted to play, with the team, with a potential divorce happening at the end of this particular season. And so the first game comes and we fall flat on our face, get blown out by the New Orleans Saints, right? Now, the media basically at that point, essentially, they were questioning Aaron Rodgers, his commitment to the team, saying, I think he's pretty much already checked out. At least some in the media, right? Maybe that's not fair to say all the media, but some in the media, right? Maybe he's not all in for the team. Maybe he's kind of looking ahead, yada, yada, right? And so Rodgers had some interesting comments basically about them after the second game in which we won. And basically saying, it's nice to kind of stick it to them because, the trolls, if you will, because they don't have any insight into how I'm feeling, but yet they decide that they want to basically speak on how I'm feeling, even though they don't fucking know that firsthand, right? So the reason why I tell this big yarn is because that's what this issue of Bond reminded me of when I saw the headlines. When you see the headlines, it says something that's not actually the case. So when you read the headlines that like some of the headlines read, Daniel Craig thinks women deserve more than a woman-led film. That's actually a pretty good description of what Daniel Craig actually said. But a lot of the headline says Daniel Craig addresses whether new James Bond should be a woman. Daniel Craig's comments on a female James Bond might surprise you. Daniel Craig believes James Bond should not be a woman. What that screams to you is that Daniel Craig is saying, fuck women, they should not be Bond because Bond's awesome and women are not. That's essentially like kind of what those headlines sort of speak to, kind of infer, I guess, if you will. At least that's the kind of the light that, at least to me, maybe I'm wrong about that interpretation, but that's how I feel about some of those headlines. But when you investigate it and you realize what Daniel Craig actually said, it's kind of hard not to agree with them, at least, to some degree. So instead of, thinking or guessing about what he says. I'm just going to read what he actually says. So, and this is an article from the AV Club. And I don't know who, let me try to see who he was actually having this conversation with. No time to start doing Craig. Bit of teary farewell. As another iconic answer. Craig says in an interview with Radio Times. So he was doing an interview with Radio Times in which he is talking about this. As other iconic film franchises have brought women leads for previously male-led roles to varied success, so Ghostbusters, Ocean's 8, and soon Indiana Jones, the conversation around a woman Bond has arisen yet again. However, Daniel Craig thinks there should be well-written roles created with women and POC, people of color, in mind specifically versus bringing them into the fold now. So he says specifically, the answer to that is very simple. There should simply be better parts for women and actors of color. Why should a woman play Bond when there should be a part just as good as Bond for a woman, but for a woman? So what he's essentially saying there is pretty plain. What he's saying is that, look, instead of you repackaging Bond as like a woman and then having that be the case, why not just write a dope fucking part for a woman, and have that role be its own thing separate from Bond? Now, I don't know how people feel about this at large. Not sure if anybody, I'm sure there are some people who give a shit, but where I sort of come down on it is I think he is partially right. And where I say he's partially right is I think it shouldn't matter whether Bond's a man or a woman. And what I mean by that is I think if you're looking at the bigger impact of having a woman Bond, it doesn't, like, who gives a shit? Like, okay, you make Bond a woman, okay, neither here nor there on that. I don't really care about that. Feel free to do that if that's what you want to do. But what I can agree with him is in the sense of that's not, if you're thinking you're solving a problem, then you're not solving a problem. For one, the problem with making Bond a woman in is the fucking 50 some odd years, 60 some odd year, whatever, however Bond's been a fucking franchise. You have all of that history, and then suddenly, like, that Bond's a woman, and everything that we know about the character is essentially flipped on his head. The main tenets of Bond is that he goes and kills people, and he womanizes. He's a womanizer. That's it. Those are the two tent poles when you talk about James Bond, is that he's an international spy, and he just sleeps with a lot of women, and then you promptly don't see them in the series again after that. And maybe Daniel Craig's Bond is a little bit different in that they've kind of made it more of a story, cohesive story, than at least other Bonds have historically been. But you have all of that history, so it's impossible to divorce that history from whatever should come after it. It'd be different if we saw a progression in Bond's character over the decades, right? If we see the evolution of this character go from being just this international spy who kills people and a womanizer to being a more sort of nuanced character who has to grapple with this or that, right? The problem is he doesn't ever really evolve. Bond doesn't ever evolve in the series. That's actually like the thing. That's the kind of the main attraction, at least for the fans of Bond. And I'll get to if I'm actually a fan of James Bond after this, but he never really grows at all during the series. So it's kind of like you're trying to make him do this sort of like 180, but it's too abrupt. That's too an abrupt a thing to have people actually like, because the people who are fans of Bond, I don't think are not necessarily not going to be receptive to a woman playing Bond so much as just a complete change of character, right? Because whether you like it, like, is with Bond being a woman, one would think that you probably shouldn't have a woman also being, but I guess maybe if you want to be a little bit more progressive, maybe you should, that perhaps a woman can just be as much of a womanizer as any sort of male Bond, but all in the same breath. The reason why they're doing it is not because they're trying to be progressive. It's simply because they just are trying to sell tickets to a movie, right? So if they're thinking, if the thought is, oh, this is a step in the right direction, no. What would be a step in the right direction is that you write a part for a woman who perhaps is similar to Bond, but is just different than Bond. So that person in that role can create its own legacy. You know what I mean? Because the legacy of Bond is just the legacy of like Bond as we've sort of known him. It's just this old white or middle-aged, I guess, white dude. And I have no problem with him changing, but that's not, if you're thinking you're changing something or you're attempting to change something in society's viewpoint, that's not, because you're never going to be able to sort of override that history of Bond with anything that you do afterwards, and that's like the thing with Bond, is that Bond's just always Bond, he's always just been this fucking dude, and then to kind of flip that on its head, it's like going through all that trouble. It's like, why not just make a new legacy so you can have somebody who can have their own legacy separate from Bond's, not because the Bond legacy is so cherished and shouldn't be interrupted, but because it's almost impossible to have something that can really be given a chance if it's still married to the past. And with anything that comes out in Bond, like, it's always going to be compared to the past. It's always, you're always going to have those previous Bond films there, so why not just create something new, to have its own legacy. Jason Bourne has its own legacy. It's obviously markedly different than a lot of the Bond movies, at least maybe not the Daniel Craig movies, but the movies that preceded Daniel Craig. But Jason Bourne has its own legacy, right? It wasn't, here's, another iteration of Bond. This was something that perhaps is similar to Bond, but has its own legacy, And so anyways, so I kind of partially agree with him that I don't really care if Bond, becomes a woman, but I'm saying do the same, write a role for a woman that is just as good as Bond, and I have my opinions on whether Bond's actually good or not. But yeah, I don't particularly think that, especially like a lot of the earlier films. Hot take. I think a lot of those films are just trash. I know. I hear the boos. I hear them. Boo. I hear them already. They're just so long and just so boring and just like in every conceivable way. Like, the action's boring, the dialogue's boring, the plot's boring. I loved them when I was a kid, but only because my dad kind of forced me to love them, right? We had every fucking Bond movie, and I was constantly told, this is awesome. And then you go back and you watch the movies, you're like, holy shit, this is just painful to watch, to sit through. Some of them were good, don't get me wrong, some of them are good. Like, I always like Moonraker. I always thought, even though you could talk about the racial aspect of it, but I always thought oh God, what is it? And I can hear the actual theme in my Live and Let Die. I always thought Live and Let Die was kind of dope, even though it's kind of takes advantage of the black exploitation film genre, and what else? The Daniel Craig movies I thought were all in all, as a whole, I thought they were pretty good, but everything kind of before that was kind of trash. I know we lived with oh man, what's his name? Now I want to forget his name. Not Daniel Craig, but who's the 90s Bond? The 90s Bond was Pierce Brosnan. I knew Brosnan, but I was trying to look for the first name. I thought those were mixed bag. The World Is Not Enough, I thought was at least, I haven't watched it in decades, but I loved that movie, at least as a kid. And then GoldenEye obviously will always have a special place for me, but kind of everything after that is kind of a train wreck. Tomorrow Never Dies was meh. And then god awful Die Another Day was should just be taken out back and shot and just never spoken of again. But anyways, to sum it all up though, Bond as a whole, it doesn't really matter whether it's a man or woman now, but that's missing the point of if this is, you know, if movies are becoming a little bit more sort of progressive and we want to really sort of hammer that home, then forget about doing another Bond that's just, you know, a woman or that's irrelevant. Write a role for a woman that's just as good as a Bond film. Like, you know, instead we're getting, you know, these movies like Atomic Blonde or the movie that came out with Kate, I think it was Kate Beckinsale recently. Let me see what this movie was called. Give me a sec here. Let's see. This movie was called Jolt. Yes, this movie was Jolt. And Jolt was just terrible. It was a terrible movie. Just bad along all lines, right? You know, so I don't know. I think the quality of the movie matters. And I think if you give a woman a role, or you write a role for a woman that's, and I'm not even going to say as good as Bond, better than Bond, because I think you can definitely get better than those Bond movies. I think you can do that nowadays, and I don't think you have to do that within the context of Bond. I think you can do that separately from Bond and still have it be successful, you know. But you just have to be able to kind of be willing to do that, and I think that goes for not just, you know, just women, but everybody who's sort of underrepresented in films. Just write the roles, just write it better than what it historically has been at, or you know, has been given, you know, to other sectionalities. Just do them better than what they've historically been done as, or give them more than what they've historically have gotten. And, you know, and I think, you know, Black Panther was like, oh my God, you know, this movie is doing great. Shang-Chi, oh, this movie's doing great. We can't believe it. Oh, this is correct. Maybe this isn't an experiment. Maybe we should. And it's just like, motherfucker, like, yeah, because it's fucking dope. Like, what the why are you shocked that these movies are doing well? It's fucking dope. So of course we're gonna like it. Like, what do you think? We're gonna be like, well, it doesn't have like a white guy as like the main protagonist, so you know, I would like it, but fuck, what are you gonna do? Anyways, so yeah, anyways, I don't really have a problem with what Daniel Craig said. I don't think that the media phrased it or has been phrasing it well. What they have been doing is creating clickbait by phrasing it in such a way that you think that Daniel Craig's like, yeah, just fuck women, and they don't deserve to be Bond. But that's not, at least from my reading of what he was saying, that's not what his feelings are. His feelings are, look, forget about Bond, just make a dope role for a woman, and that would make much more sense. I'm in the camp of whether you make Bond a woman or not is kind of immaterial at this point. Just write better roles for women, period, right? But anyways, moving on. Actually, you know what? I might just leave it there. I might just leave it right there. You know what? Let's do one more. Fuck it. I'm feeling good. Look, Disney's got some Disney, you know what Disney's like right now? I'm trying to think of a proper metaphor for this. Disney right now is like, they're like that student in school who got caught cheating on their test and is just in consummate denial of the cheating. It's like, dude, you had the fucking the mirror on your foot, you know, we saw you, we caught you, you know, you know, or we saw the answers written down on your hand. Like we got you literally like red-handed, you know. We've got you. And the kids, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything wrong. Nothing's wrong, right? And for those who don't know what the fuck I'm talking about the current pending lawsuit with Scarlett Johansson about Black Widow and her compensation for Black Widow, because Black Widow was released, and it was released obviously post in our current COVID scenario, but it was released both on in theaters as well as on Disney Plus. But what that did was kind of fuck up Scarlett Johansson's figures as far as what she was supposed to receive from the film, because not only was she supposed to receive her base salary, but she was also supposed to receive a certain percentage of the gross from the movie, you know, from theaters, after it was released in theaters. And of course, those percentages were all fucked up because it was released on both in theaters as well as on Disney Plus. So they apparently, her camp was trying to get things sort of reworked before it was released on Disney Plus, but Disney was having none of that, saying basically like, new phone, who this? And just paid her 20, and then I'm pretty sure they paid her at least some amount out of what, you know, the theatrical gross was from the film, but not anywhere near what she would have made in ordinary times. I say all that to say that this past Tuesday, so Bob Chapek, who is of course the CEO of Disney and kind of new on the job. He's a little green on the job because Bob Iger was the previous CEO, and he sort of handed that off. But as soon as he did, basically COVID happened and things went sideways for Disney. But so he was speaking to Goldman Sachs nonetheless, and all great speeches are given to Goldman Sachs. Whenever you want to just hear something that is just great and warms your heart, you listen to anybody giving a speech at any point in time to Goldman Sachs, and you know you probably won't feel great about yourself afterwards. You probably feel terrible. But so he was speaking at some sort of Goldman Sachs some shit, and he said this. He said, "We've got a deal that's conceived under a certain set of conditions that actually results in a movie that's being released in a completely different set. So there's a bit of a reset that's going on right now, and ultimately we'll think about that as we do our future talent deals and plan for that and make sure that that's incorporated." Chapek said, but right now we've got sort of this middle position where we're trying to do right by the talent. I think the talent's trying to do right by us, and we're just sort of figuring out our way to bridge the gap. And so, yeah. So basically, that was all fucking CEO speak for, yeah. We don't want to have to pay you for this shit because we don't think we have to pay you. So yeah, there's that. And you feel the way you do, we feel the way we do. You know, this is basically like it's basically like the embodiment of "I'm sorry you feel bad." Is exactly what this is. I'm sorry you feel that way. It's not like an apology. It's not like a, oh shit, we fucked up, whatever. Like, it's just, yeah, well, you know, you think I did something bad, and it's okay, but we didn't, you know, according to us. So yeah, I don't know. So he says this, and they pretend as if their talent is the most important asset, as is also quoted in this Hollywood Reporter article. But in truth, they're not to you. Otherwise, you would have tried to renegotiate with Scarlett Johansson on the back end of COVID, right? That when you knew that you were going to release Disney Plus on streaming platforms as well as in theaters, you have the opportunity to then go back and renegotiate with Scarlett Johansson. Like, look, circumstances have changed. We're not going to be able to honor, you know, or the amount that you're going to be receiving for this film is going to be drastically different because we're now having to release this on Disney Plus as well as in theaters, which, whether it's in the contract or not in the contract, what they do have is precedent, right? And for all of the previous Marvel films that they put out, they, for the most part, put them all out in theaters. That Black Widow was essentially the only different model that they used. And obviously that's because of COVID. But in that case, you have to then go back to the talent and say, okay, this is what it is, and we're going to renegotiate things. And how we kind of know that this is true, how we sort of know that this is true is because of that they did this with I believe that they did this with The Rock and Emily Blunt with Jungle Cruise. I believe that's what they did, and they seem to not want to do that with Scarlett Johansson. And so anyways, I only bring this up to say that, Disney's some shit, dude. Not just because of this whole scenario, but because of even how they've even handled the scenario. Like, they just, it was so fucking weird to see them do some shit which or come out and make statements about Scarlett Johansson on the back end, basically saying like, oh, well, we paid you this much, so you should basically just shut the fuck up. The fuck is that shit, and so I don't know, man. It's a big fucking mess, and these comments don't make it any better. They just make it somehow even worse. That he's basically saying, yeah, we're sorry. Well, we're sorry you feel bad, about it, but we still don't give a shit. And I'm sure that they'll probably, this will probably end up in like arbitration or go to settlement or some shit like that. But I don't know. Disney's fucking up right now, man. They need to figure this shit out. And it's curious how they're saying they're going to try to fix things for the future, because it's like, well, how do you fix something like this for the future? Because do you, like, I'm sure Disney's not coming from the viewpoint of, oh yeah, we're gonna blanketly restructure contracts in the case of some sort of crazy world event or something like that that's going to prevent us from potentially putting these films out. No, they're going to try to screw the talent somehow, out of any sort of recourse that they might have in saying that they're owed a certain amount if plans are to change, and so I think that they're just going to try to tighten the bolts on that. But yeah, in any event, look, guys, I'm getting the fuck out of here. All right, I got things that need to be done. But it's been fun. It's been fun to chop it up. So Rain actually could have made it a little bit at the end here, but we figured that it's the end of the show, so fuck it. But yeah, we'll get him back in the building next week. Until then, we appreciate you guys watching. If you have watched, we appreciate you, but hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, and share this shit with anybody and everybody who you think can benefit from it, which of course is everybody. With that being said, I think I'll go ahead and hit the very usual protocol. Fade out. Peace.